All right, so it is Tuesday, the 12th of January, 2021. Ooh, 11221. That's fun.
Ah.
That's cool. All right, this is my connection interview with Caitlyn Rosebud. And now that I was just discussing about not coughing,
Right.
I'm freaking out about coughing. So tell me just real quick, just kind of go over like maybe your basic how you got to where you are. So you're a CrossFit coach, you're a CrossFit athlete. Every year in the CrossFit Open, you've gone whittling down, whittling down, whittling down, which is what we discussed, which was
That's
awesome.
Yep.
So your plan is working. And because I met you when you were 16 still.
Mhm. Yeah, I was young.
You were
I was
noodles. It was
I was
awesome.
almost 17.
Yeah.
It was October of 2016. Do you want me to go like pre-CrossFit or do you want me to start pretty much when
Yeah,
I walked in the door?
just basically like,
How did I get there?
yeah, how did you get to where you are today about,
Right.
being a college student and
Yeah.
juggling that and all the interesting things that you do?
Right. Well, a short snippet of pre-CrossFit. I grew up in a large family. I have three brothers, a mom and a dad. Always super busy growing up. So my mom quickly shoved me into gymnastics, but it was also by choice. I definitely loved it. Had a lot of energy, loved flipping. So I was around the age of 7. I got into gymnastics for quite a long time. Had some pretty bad injuries in there, which ultimately led me to trying something else. That probably when I was around 13 or 14, entering into high school. I tried track and field where I did long jumping and pole vaulting for quite a bit. Dealt with some really bad shin splints. Definitely was not fun. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but it's definitely not something that you want to deal with. So by then, I had also met my current boyfriend, who I'm still with, Zach, and he was thinking about trying CrossFit, and I at first was very much not on board. I was mainly on board in the sense that I wanted it to help me with track and field. I wasn't on board as far as I want to be a CrossFit athlete. I had seen CrossFit for the first time, I think, in 2014 on TV. I thought it was crazy. I immediately shut it down. I told myself, I don't think I could do that. And then lo and behold, 2016 rolled around, which was my junior year of high school. I was still running track and pole vaulting. And I ultimately decided after Zach had gone in the weekend before to go in the weekend after. And I can say that pretty much instantly, I didn't just realize that I liked it as far as helping me for track and field, but I pretty much realized that I wanted to do that because it embodied a bunch of different sports. And I could just tell by the community and the people there that were so willing to push me to be good at it that I was like, hey, you know what? Like, why not try something that involves gymnastics, which I really missed. It involves new things. Like I had never picked up a barbell. I don't even think I had ever even benched before, like at all. Even think of that. I have 3 brothers and I had never tried anything like that. So
That
I had
is
never
weird.
done,
I've never thought of that.
right? Like I had never done anything with lifting. Like I don't even think I had gone because that
And your
was
twin
going to
played
Planet
baseball for how
Fitness
long?
a
How long?
long time. Like
Yeah.
yeah, long time. And I had just never. We had a barbell. Like we had one in my basement. My brothers would go and lift all the time, but I never really picked it up. Never did anything with it. The barbell was completely new. But like I said, I loved the gymnastics incorporation that I really missed. It had a bunch of agility work, which I loved. And then it combined a whole new aspect for me, which I ran track, but I was never a long distance athlete. So the endurance side of training was completely new to me. I had a lot of suffering to do to get better at that for sure, but it was definitely worth it. And it's still getting better. Still got a ways to go. But so now here I am over 4 years later, still going strong. And I love it. It's so fun. It's the best thing I could have done, I think. But
So
that's pretty much it.
yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty much it.
Just
And
a
now,
small
yeah,
snapshot.
that was pretty concise. That was actually
Yeah.
really good. So what? You're taking 2 classes currently.
Yes, currently just 2.
Okay. And then, so are you considered a sophomore still?
Yes. Yes, I think so.
Because
Technically based because I took a gap year. Because I went to college in 2018 to 2019. I took over full time. Like it was like 5 or 6 classes per semester.
I
Soon
remember.
real soon realized that was not a good idea. I took a year off because there was also a bunch of stuff going on in my home life, which we might get to. But took a year off, decided finally that even if it was just chipping away, I wanted to do something because as much as I love CrossFit, your brain needs a break from thinking about CrossFit 24/7. So getting in a class or two in something that I enjoy and to continue to chip away towards a basic degree is totally manageable for me right now. So I last semester and this semester, which is now the spring or the winter into spring of 2021, I'm just taking 2. Super manageable and it's going well so far.
What was your grade point last semester?
I got both A's.
Darn
So
right you better get both.
whatever that makes.
Well, yeah, it's still 4.0,
Yeah, right? Exactly.
which is good because for people who don't necessarily know Zach, school
Right.
comes very easily to Zach. Um,
Yes.
yes, he does
Oh, yes.
study, and it's not like he just shows up.
Right.
But if he did, he would still probably get good grades.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
His
And
brain
he,
is just wired.
he's been like that since we were in high school. I remember there were classes that we took that, were the same. And I can remember me having to study like 2 or 3 hours and it still being difficult and him honestly not really studying much at all and getting an A or B. So he definitely just learns differently than me, which is great. Good for him. I'm so proud of him, happy for him, but I am not that type of person. I definitely have to really study to get it. Unless it's English. I'm pretty good at English, writing and reading. That comes easy to me, but everything else needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, so and that was part of the thing too. I like looking back even then, I realized I know part of it was because of the home situation, it was better to
Right.
not be there. So it was like,
Right.
I eventually want my degree anyway, so let's go.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Get it done.
yeah, just get it done.
And
But
if
then
it's
it got,
just chipping away.
yeah, and then it got, if you remember, it didn't start at chipping away. It started at, no, I have to have my plan. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and one of the things I want people to know about you, which was I thought pretty awesome, explain to me for your senior year of high school because you were doing, you wanted to train and go to competitions and stuff like that. How did how did you handle your senior year of high school? How did you
Senior
set
year of
yourself up
high
for
school.
success? Because I always found this people who are driven, this will just make sense to them.
Right.
For normal
Right.
people who are thinking about being 17 years old, this is odd.
Yeah, right. Well, do you want me to dive into a little bit of the obstacles that occurred? Okay. Well, so going into my senior year, my parents were not doing well as far as their marriage. They had been married for almost 30 years. And I knew for quite a few years that eventually they probably wouldn't be together anymore. But they finally reached a point where, and it happened to be my senior year when I was graduating, that they were going to get divorced. So in the midst of graduating, my parents were getting divorced. And around that time, I had also just qualified for Granite Games, which is one of the CrossFit competitions. At the time, it was not a sanctioned event, it was just a CrossFit competition. But I had qualified, which I feel like having that really helped me mentally stay motivated towards something because that was in August. So it was after I graduated. So like even going through graduation and then into the summer, like I was prepping for that almost all year. Like it was a very long span of time where I knew that that was something that I was aiming towards. So that definitely helped me. But as far as previous to that, my parents were getting divorced. I was graduating in, I believe, April. Through that, my dad one of the main reasons that my parents were getting divorced was because he has struggled with alcoholism and alcoholic addiction. So my wasn't really seeing my dad at all, and because of that, um, my parents, like I said, we're getting divorced. But then since they're splitting, we needed to move. So I was also now looking for a new house. So and this, keep in mind, I'm trying to apply to college. I'm trying to get in somewhere and worry about where I'm going to school. Financially, my parents are struggling because they're getting divorced and we're trying to move. So we're trying to sell my house. So they finally sell my house, but there's a gap between when I can get into that house and between when the person's getting into ours. And so we had found the house that we were buying, but we couldn't get into it. I believe, trying to think, I think it was after Granite Games. It was like September, October.
Yeah.
So I actually, me and my mom moved in with my boyfriend because they have a pretty large house with some guest space, which was we were really fortunate to have access to. We moved in with Zach through graduation and throughout the entire summer through Granite Games. And previous to that, I had actually left my house at a point when things were really bad between my parents and stayed at Zach's like
In high school.
graduation in high school. So I was like early 17. And I got to a point where my dad and my brothers weren't getting along. Things were becoming physical. And I just didn't feel like I was in an environment that was supporting me mentally or physically. So going into trying to graduate, I was losing the motivation, because not to graduate, but the motivation to keep going through something that was so mentally stressful that nobody else knew that I was going through. Like, it was just me and my brothers. And I didn't talk about it with anybody. I would tell them my parents were getting divorced, but they had no idea why, or the fact that I wasn't even living at my own house. I was living at my boyfriend's house when I graduated. So that part of it, it was rough. It was a really rough year. And like I said, I feel like CrossFit is the reason why that year specifically, I kept it together. It gave me stability. It was somewhere that I went to let out anger and frustration daily. And I had those days where I was in the gym, I'd cry because I was having one of those days, or my parents were arguing more than normal, or whatever it was. And I just feel like having Granite Games and having put all that anger and frustration into qualifying for that, and then using that as a motivator to stay on top of something, is what helped me graduate, finally figure out, all right, I'm going to school, I can do this for myself. And ultimately, I maybe have put a little bit too much on my shoulders right at first. I learned that, but I'm proud of how I handled it. Like, looking back, I feel like it was really difficult at 17 to say, I'm going to go live with my boyfriend, which is not something I wanted to do. I loved him and still love him dearly, but that was not, I didn't want to do that at 17, like, you're 17, you're really young. I'm just about to turn 21 and I still don't think I'd want to live with him full time, but I did for like 3 or 4 months because I really didn't have a choice. And initially, even before I had didn't have a choice, I chose to do it anyways, just to get out of that toxic environment. And then graduated, prepped for Granite Games while living at Zach's house. Finally went to Granite Games, did pretty good. And then started my school year. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Did pretty good.
What place did you get?
I took third.
Yeah.
Took third.
Oh, that's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But yeah, that year was one I will never forget. It has been the toughest mentally for me, for sure. Obviously, there are a bunch of years. Everybody has struggles. I feel like everybody at some point is going to have a struggle like that. I feel like for me so far, going through all of that at once, and I'm sure there's more to it, it was a lot, especially being 17.
Well, and so part of the reason why I was hoping you'd share that stuff is because if anybody sees you work out, you have a CrossFit body. You
Right.
are lean and muscular and strong AF, and you move really well, and you're dedicated, and you eat well, and you're regimented. And so people tend to see, I don't want to say the end result because it's not the end result, but you know what I mean? Like they tend to see
Right.
the result and go, oh well, this must, and then they get whatever idea they have, oh well, it must be easy for her, or she must be, or well sure, because she's in
Right.
the gym all the time and blah blah blah. And
Right.
part of the reason why I always felt connected with you is because
Mhm.
you let me in. And I'm gonna give away one of your secrets is you're not always the biggest fan of your sensitivity. And
No, I wear my heart on my sleeve for sure.
yeah, but you're not always a fan of it.
Right. No, I'm not. But I'm admitting to it. I'm
Yes.
admitting to the fact that I know I'm like that.
And and you shared with me a lot of stuff, even more than the stuff you've talked about here. And it was so, I felt so honored. Like I know I told you that the other day too, but I felt honored, but I felt very, when I say responsible, in the best way, like I'm responsible for my kids, like I'm
Right.
responsible for the love I have for my family, like I was responsible
Right.
for our relationship, and I really worked on never taking that for granted, and
Right.
that meant the hard stuff, which was having conversations with you about, no, you're not working out today, you're not doing this today, you're not. And it's funny because most people would be like,
Right.
my coach said don't work out, wicked, and
Right.
he owed, and like, well, what am I gonna do? And I'm like,
Right.
I know it's only 10 a.m. Like you have a day. This is gonna be horrible.
Right. I know, and I know that I appreciated that like more than you and Jason know, because I also had a hard time, like I had kind of said, where at school nobody really knew what was going on, but also at the gym nobody really knew what was going on. I didn't, even the girls that I trained with at the time, I didn't tell them really anything besides, like, they might have known my parents were getting divorced, but
That was it.
besides that they didn't know anything. So for me, it's not that I was hiding it, it's just the fact that I didn't want to accept it and let it affect me. Like I wanted to just say, all right, there's nothing you can do about it now, but you're here at the gym and you can take this time in this building to focus on something that is productive and gives you motivation and drives you. And I feel like part of that mentality was good, but part of it was hard because then, like you said, I would break down and I wouldn't be able to just hold it in and not talk about it. Like I had to just get it out, because I wasn't telling anybody about it. So it definitely is something that I truly appreciated having, was being able to sit down and talk with you guys, or just let it all out when I needed to, because I definitely did. I needed to get it out for sure.
Well, and the thing I liked about what Jason and I think we did well,
Hmm.
especially was, so we took every day, or every, we'll say issue or whatever, like
Right.
whatever happened, we took it understanding the full scope of what was going on. Now we didn't
Right.
necessarily let you off the hook. We helped you, and it's, almost sounds bad, but compartmentalize, and but like you said,
Right.
listen, there's nothing I can do about later today until
Mm.
later today.
Right.
And one of the things I thought that Jason really, really did well for you was reminding you that you're not going to be a finished product anytime soon, and that's
Right.
okay. Like,
Hmm.
that, because I know the transition mentally of, also in the scheme of you, trying to compete, for CrossFit, having the 18-year-old cutoff, two other events later on next year, you missed out, and literally, like, you would have gone to Wadapalooza, but the person
Right. Right.
dropped
And
out. Yeah.
I didn't want to make excuses for myself. Like, I didn't want to say, oh, because of my circumstances, like I was going through a lot, because you don't know what other people are going through. Somebody easily could have been going through the same thing or something similar. But I recognize now that even though it is upsetting to know that I missed out so close twice, by one spot, it now I'm just happy that I gave it the effort that I did in the moment, knowing what I was going through, knowing that, I don't know what all those other girls are going through, but I know that what I was just going through. So to get that close, with my parents getting divorced, not living at my house, trying to go to college, graduating high school, like it was just a really hectic year. So I look back on it and I know that I had to build a lot of mental toughness that year. It was rough. And I learned a lot from it. That's very true.
Yeah. So, I think like I said, I was privileged to see so many different growth spurts and, yeah, physically, um, one of my favorite times, which is interesting, is when you tore your which one was it? I know it's your elbow, but it was what part of your
Yeah,
elbow?
it's the UCL of your elbow. So
Yeah.
what people tear in their knee, but in their elbow.
Yeah. And then because we had signed up, we were gonna do what it was a competition.
Yeah, it was back when, I don't know if CrossFit still does this or not, but it was back in, so this was the end of 2017, right? Yeah. Or was, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it was
Sorry.
the end,
Yes.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So the end of 2017, which I was a year into CrossFit at this point, it was called CrossFit Liftoff,
That's right.
and it was where you essentially would max your snatch and your clean and jerk, and it was still by like age divisions. So at this time, I was still 17 in the teenage category, and then your individual scores, I think, as well as your combined score,
Yeah.
would just like place you. And I decided to do snatches first, went for it, and I ended up tearing my UCL in my elbow. I
At 185 pounds.
yeah.
Yeah. Still. Okay.
I it was a little bit fluky, a little bit just pushing myself and lifting really heavy weight at a young age. It partly though was also like my build, because I am super hypermobile from gymnastics. My elbows hyperextend. I just didn't have enough wrist stability at that point in time. So even though I could get it over my head, doesn't mean that it necessarily should have been there. So I again, another thing that's a setback, but I was super thankful for the experience because I learned a lot from it. I learned how I need to tweak my snatches in order to not have that issue. So I tore it in, this was December of 2017. So less than a year later, recovered, and I got to attempt those weights at Granite Games, which was really cool the next year. I missed it just by a little bit, but I do remember I had run a 5K faster than I had ever done it before, like an hour before. So I was happy even just to get to that point. But yeah, so that was December. It took about till maybe February to really heal that. Started back with the bar, worked back up in weights slowly but surely. I feel like confidence wise, it took a bit, especially throughout the summer, working with those types of loads to feel normal again or not nervous with the bar overhead. But it
And
doesn't
I'm
give
sure
me
it
any
didn't
issues
help that
now.
literally Jason and I were about 4 inches away from your arm every time you were lifting. We're like,
Right?
just to
It's like,
make sure.
what's it doing?
Yeah, yeah. Because I sit there and I think back on that, and I'm like, yeah, I was hawking her all the time, like when you would lift again, because we were, for at
Right,
least.
we got to be cautious,
Yeah.
because it popped out, so it definitely was looser. And I had, some residual pain there for a little bit, excessive handstand push-ups upside down because of the hyperextension and the weight on my arms. Even sometimes push-ups, sometimes benching, ring muscle ups. It took a bit to really get my arm normal, especially flexibility wise, even too. I know I'm hypermobile, but the tightness ran all the way down my forearm. So even holding like a front rack position for cleans, front squats, going overhead and push jerks, I had to really recover that for quite a bit, because, you know, it was really tight from the tear.
Yeah. Oof, I do remember that. That was not a fun day.
No,
And then I remember because
scary.
yeah, in I think it was January or something is when I tore my pec
Yep, I remember
during
that.
yeah CrossFit Kids training. Yeah, people are gonna watch this and go, how is that even possible? This big man, and didn't want to be embarrassed, and so I locked my arm out, and he just pulled gently, and it tore. But you and I doing, was it during the open when we were doing one arm burpees? Or what?
It
I
could have been. It was either that or just before, because
Yeah.
I know in the open, I was like, I got lucky that I didn't have to scale anything that year.
Oh, that's right. So it was just before the open because we were still
Yeah.
in. You had your cool bionic arm.
Yep.
You know,
I
I
did,
was not allowed to use my arm, so we just like rolled around. And
did the worm.
yeah, it was the worm. Oh, and then the bike, one arm biking. I just remember you on the bike. Oh God, and me just being like, dude, just faster than my both arms. That's sad. But
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the part of my big goal this year is um, I want people to communicate slash listen to communicate or to connect and not just to be correct. And a
Right.
lot of people, you know, especially with what's going on in the world, but
Mhm.
at a gym, it's been like this forever. You know, people see somebody and then they have a preconceived idea of whatever. And then they'll hear stuff to prove themselves correct as opposed to actually understand. And
Right. For
uh,
sure.
it's
I think a big thing for me, especially being a coach too, and having to grow through that, it's been cool to see how newer athletes that walk in now that I'm over 4 years into CrossFit, walk in and then they'll tell me like after they get to know me a little bit, like you made me really intimidated, like I was nervous and or something along the lines of like, man, I can't imagine like you like now versus when you walked in. And I, had to remind them that like I'm human and I walked into this gym just like you did. I didn't walk in being able to do ring muscle ups and spring handstand push ups and let alone do double unders. I had never even picked a bar up before, like I said earlier. So lots of it was completely new. I was fortunate to know some of the more advanced gymnastics because I did that for so long, like the handstand walking and the pistols. But um, other than that, didn't know barbell stuff, didn't have baseline strength. I really had to work hard to build that strength as well as the cardio. So I walked in there just like anybody else did and was also hesitant walking in there because I remember walking in there and thinking, holy crap, I don't know if I can do this. I told myself I look back on it and it's sad, but I told myself, when I quit gymnastics that I'm not going to be as strong as I was like when I was a gymnast. Like I just didn't think it was possible. And then now I look back on that and I think, oh my God, that's so silly. Because I feel like I'm 10 times stronger than I was then. And I feel like I'm just continuing to raise the bar for myself and others are raising the bar for me. But it's been cool to have people walk in the gym and, say, what was it like when you first started? Or what could you do when you first walked in here? And to tell them, I was just like you, like, there's nothing different, so it's just whatever you want to set your mind to and be determined to achieve is it's up to you. If you want to do it, why not? Go for it.
see, and I love that. And one of the part of the reason why I, would love for you to, like we were discussing a little bit before about, reaching out and sharing your story with people because when we had an event at the gym for Athleta and for young girls and stuff, it was so cute just to see how they were just like, and my daughter loved working out with you.
Right.
She actually liked working out with Zach too because she would give me,
Hmm.
but she loved working out with you because she wanted to do what you could do. She wanted to do the cool stuff. Like, I want to be like Caitlyn. What's Coach Caitlyn doing? And I'm like, stuff that I can't do. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, well, if you want to learn, go over it. Like, that's what I'm saying. I said,
Right.
go play with her. Like, I can't do this. I can tell you what she's doing right or wrong, but I can't tell you.
Right.
And to see the maturity and growth of, and I think part of it, and I wanted to kind of save this part when we were talking the other day, and you agreed to do this, is I wanted to save this to tell you, hey, to put you on the spot also, because
Right.
it's fun that way.
Yeah.
But to know, because part of why it was hard for you to be your best coach, which I can, like, just listening to you, it's so amazing. It makes me so happy. It's that part of it was your defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because when you coach, what I love about you, one of the things I love about you, there's a list. I haven't kept it, but I know it's a long one. It's fine. Not just about your new hair today. People don't know
Right.
you've had bangs now for what, a day?
A day.
A day.
A day.
Since you were like a little kid, so that's amazing. But
Right.
it's that because you don't do anything halfway, when you coach, you want to be a better coach. You want to help somebody.
Right.
You want people are important to you. But I think part of where, I didn't understand, and Jason and I would like struggle, like, I don't know what to do to tell her to be coaching. And a big part was, it was just a protection.
Right.
In my opinion, a protection, because until you were, and I'm not saying you don't ever get triggered, but I love what you told me, which is it's not as raw, it's not as immediate. It's, is it disappointing? Yes. Is it better? Oh yeah. And so
Right.
it was almost a survival mechanism. Like,
Yeah.
listen, I want to coach, I want to help, but also, like, when I'm coaching, they want my whole me. And if they know the whole me, ooh, boy, howdy, I ain't got time for that. Like,
Right.
they're only here an hour. They don't have time.
Right.
And
I feel
I think
like
that's what was, like you said, being on the other side of, and when I say moment, I know it didn't feel like a moment, and I know it was years, and I know it's not over, and everything's not Mina kisses and her chewing on the climbing rope. I know it's not,
right.
which still makes me happy every day I think about that. But it really was a season, and I've been using it. It was a season in your life of, yes, here's where I was. I wanted to be a good coach, and that's one of the things I really worked on, trying to work on with you, was coaching you to be a better coach. And that's why, like, I just found my to-do list after you cleaned when I said, okay, then you're going to be the office manager, and you went, wicked, because you were able to say, listen, I can see progress. I can get stuff done. It's orderly. I have control over it.
Right.
Not come back here and put your stuff everywhere again. And that's why I found that note that says, you will not put your stuff anywhere. You have 2 cubbies. Put it there.
Right.
And I think that's the part that I was so proud. I still am. And I'm so amazingly grateful that you are doing so much better. Because I told you long time ago that I would love you regardless if you did CrossFit, if you did track, if you did nothing. I would still love you as the person you are, as interesting and broken at the time, and
Right.
because that's what's important to me. And so, having had a whole lot of years of, I really don't think I've had an athlete coach relationship with anybody more in depth than with you. I really don't. And, me stepping away and not really spending time with you for a year, basically, selfishly was hard. And it wasn't hard because I didn't get to tell you how to do a lift or didn't get to challenge you. part of it was I didn't get to challenge you because I love that.
Right.
Because you'd
Right.
be like, let's go. What are you thinking? Like, that was so last week. And I'd be like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Maybe we have to coach better. But it was not being around for the journey and not
Yeah, for sure.
see your
Yeah.
progress. And when you
Right.
talked to me, I got off the phone and I talked to Donna for 15 minutes. I was just glowing because of how awesome you sounded and what
Yeah.
you're doing and stuff like, you know what, I'm just taking 2 classes because, you know, I know I'm going to be successful. I'm still going to do that. And it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
and to hear other coaches and other people like, you know, Rob and Nick explain it and talk to me and explain the changes in you. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and that means a lot to me. You know, I feel like 2019 was a year for healing for me because that was right after everything went down with my parents. We moved. I was in a new house because I was in my childhood home for the whole 18 years of my life, 19 years, however long I was there. So it was just a big year of change. So I was needing time to really heal, and that was a hard decision because I had decided to discontinue going to school for a year. And for me, I'm somebody that has always loved education and like finish what you start. And I've always, you know, it's do good, you know, like I want to make sure that I'm getting A's in my classes. I'm not somebody that likes to settle. So it was a really hard year, but then going into 2020, I feel like that year was not just a year of healing, but it was a year of a lot of growth. I feel like I finally truly connected with the coaching side of CrossFit, and I feel like it finally developed fully in my brain. Um, I've just realized, you know, and I've almost realized it through my training, how much it means to me when somebody is supporting me and helping me reach my goals, whether it just be a simple compliment or motivational statement to me in the gym, or somebody writes me a nice message, or somebody posts something and like tags me in it and says, this reminds me of you. And I develop those relationships not because I'm in the gym training, because I coach and I care just as much about those people that I'm coaching as I do the feedback and the motivation they give me. And I told you this last time we talked, like 10 years from now, whether I'm still doing this, whether I'm doing something different, or if I'm just coaching, whatever it may be, I don't want to be remembered as somebody that just trained all the time and was a great athlete. Like, I want to be remembered for how I made other people feel. Because I know that truly, like 40 years from now, people are going to remember how you make them feel, not just that you were a good athlete. And I feel like I've learned not only through myself, but other people that I have trained around or not trained around, that the way that they have treated me as a fellow athlete or fellow coach, you know, like those things really stick. So it, you know, put into perspective for myself, like, I don't want to come off as somebody who's selfish or just cares about their training, you know. Um, the coaching matters more because at the end of the day, if I'm influencing their life positively, that makes me feel good. So even if I'm not getting anything in return, and even if they're not motivating me or doing whatever to give something back to me, at least I know that I'm giving my best effort to improve their fitness, their life, their mental state in that moment, whatever it may be. Because that alone gives you the fulfillment to keep doing what you're doing. So I feel like that's something that this whole last year I really developed. Because not that I didn't have it before, but I didn't get it before. Not until this year or this past year. It's still crazy. I keep thinking it's 2020. It's
I
not 20.
know.
It's 2021 now. We're
I,
on to
I
bigger and better things.
21. I actually haven't written it incorrectly yet, but it's also
Mhm.
been 12 days. So
Right.
I haven't written
Right.
it down many times. But I
It
mean, last
hasn't
year I
even
was
been
still like,
not even 2 weeks.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's right. It's been 12 days. Oh,
Right.
yeah, these 12 days have been a long year. That's for sure. That's what 2020 was. It was like,
Oh
um,
God.
which was weird because I felt like the summer flew by, and the fall and stuff was crazy fast. But March and April were forever.
Oh yeah, we were all stuck at like at home. Like nobody was allowed to go like anywhere. Nor did we want to because we didn't know what COVID was. We were like, is this thing out to get me? Like if I'm just walking the street, is this thing gonna just woof like oh I've got COVID?
Yeah.
We had no idea. Oh, crazy times. I look back at that and it was just something that we'll never forget that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, I want to finish on. Don't get off though when I stop recording, please, because I
Yeah.
want to talk to you. Is how you said that making an impact on people and that connection. You know that's this whole. This one guy I was reaching out to. He's the one that said, I don't know if you remember, there was a guy who kept coming to the gym for like several years who wanted to do something in the back. Big African American dude, like 300 pounds, like muscular dude. And we just never connected. It was weird.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. So I left November 5th because it was after the weightlifting meet. So maybe, not even just like maybe December 1st or 2nd or something like that. He sent me a message and said, hey, you should do a YouTube channel, or you should like, and I went, okay. So it was
Right?
weird. Like, and what I discovered is that's what you just said about helping improve somebody's, even if it's moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rewarding, even though you're not getting a tangible,
Right.
it's, and that's, I think, what I loved, because I think you have a even better understanding of why Jason and I loved coaching you. And I use the term love specifically, not always liked, because you are an athlete, and athletes are a little stubborn. Oh, I think you're frozen. Can you still hear me? Kate? Caitlyn froze.